32,000 people in the state of Kansas. I have served in the Kansas legislature 16 years now, and time just goes really fast, and every year it's something different. I serve as the ranking member on 3 key legislative committees. The Federal and State Affairs Committee, we deal with issues, abortion, gun legislation. I also serve on the Senate Ethics and Elections Committee. Voting is so important. One of the bills that will become law on July 1st that I thought was important to get passed into law. Some of you may recall the last election, I believe Brendan Johnson was on the ballot, where 20 our Cedric County commissioners threw out 23 advance ballots from disabled voters. Threw those ballots out because they could not verify that signature. As we know, individuals, senior citizens, individuals with disabilities, they sometimes need the assistance of their aide to sign their ballots. And so it was a catch-22 in there. The current law said that the disabled person would have to sign to authorize their aide to sign for them. And so the bill just simply allows legally for that aide to sign the ballot for that voter. And so that's something, a good piece of legislation serving on that committee. I also serve on the, as I said, the local government committee. I also serve on Commerce Committee, looking at jobs, looking at new businesses. The gentleman that spoke prior to the introduction of our state, myself and the state colleagues, talking about transportation. You know, it's been a big deal forever, our roads and highways. I had my newsletter passed out, and you'll see on page 3 the Transportation Task Force that has been established to look into better ways of dealing with our roads and highways. I will sit and kind of come back and forth. I don't know how the other 2 colleagues will want to do this, but I'll just sit down. I'll end by saying there were there were several initiatives that I actually personally pursued. But one of them was, and you know, every time we get a new governor, the rules change. So Governor Brownback went out, Governor Collier came in, and so he sent a memo out asking each of us to stop by his office and chat with him of things that we thought were important. During my time with him, a couple of years ago, Representative Finney introduced a bill in the Kansas House, Ban the Box. I introduced similar legislation in the Senate. That legislation didn't move forward, and so my time with the Governor Collier, he says, "Olitha, what can I do to help?" I said, well, if you could help implement Ban the Box, because we know everybody needs a job. We talk about those who are coming out of prison even, and they need a job. But it's another catch-22. How can you get that gainful employment if you fill out the application and you check that box where it says, have you ever been convicted of a felony? And the study found most employers that application is tossed in the trash immediately. So Ban the Box will allow you to get your foot in the door for that initial one-on-one interview. The employer still has the right to ask you, about your past, and you get that opportunity to explain. when we did that press conference, and I believe, I can't even, time is going so fast, I think that was maybe about a month ago now, or a couple of weeks, 3 weeks ago. The implementation of that will take effect 90 days from the date that we did the press conference. However, it will only allow government jobs. So we'd have to pass a bill to make it happen throughout the state. I know Koch Industries here in Wichita, we're already doing something similar, but this will also help those who are applying for state government positions. So I think that's, because we're always talking about jobs, education, healthcare. Lori Lawrence has come up to Topeka and fought for CanCare, and we just can't get it through. But thank you, Lori, for your advocacy on that. And that's something I just want to suggest. If you can get a bus and bring all of your members, all the different neighborhood association members, even though you do a lot on the local level, when you want CanCare, healthcare, that I believe is important and so essential for everybody. The pharmacist spoke of that. Come up to Topeka next session. Our session will begin again on January 14th, 2019. Come up there, have a day at the Capitol. I know that Representative Finney and Representative Casey O'Hobson, we would love to host you there. Have a table in the rotunda and, speak on healthcare or something, whether you're with one political party or the other. We all agree that we need good health care and affordable health care. So, and moms demand action. The committee I serve on, guns, those mothers, those moms were there every day, and so I appreciate your advocacy as well. I'll sit down for a minute and then kind of answer any questions. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. My name is State Representative Casey O'Hobson. I am the representative from the 89th District. This is my first term. I just finished my first term serving in the State House. I am so honored to be the representative alongside with my colleagues. Anytime you have my colleague Gail Finney or Senator Foscato on your back, then you know that you have a lot of work to do for the district. But I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to see everyone come out. I also want to thank Councilman Johnson for having us today. Even though yesterday was a kickoff of the River Festival, I know there's a lot of activities going on, and for you guys to take time out to come to hear us, we really do appreciate it. This past year has been very, very interesting. First we started off with a lot of uncertainty in terms of who our governor was going to be. First was going to be, we didn't know if Governor Brownback was going to be there. Then all of a sudden he got nominated, he got confirmed by the Senate to be the ambassador. Then Governor Coyle took over. So just like what Senator Foscato just said, we had, whenever there's a change of guard, in terms of what policies are, in terms of what the agenda will be, of course, everything's kind of like a toss-up because we don't know what the new administration is going to do, what their plans were going to do. So we battled for that for the first 30 days when we were in Topeka as to what was going to happen. But we're glad, once Governor Coyle took over, we were very happy that we got some kind of direction as to where we were going to go for the session. So, of course, this past year, going back from last year, the main topic, was in terms of education funding, what we were going to do. Yeah. Of course, last year, the Supreme Court ruled that the funding that we allocated last year was unconstitutional. So therefore, they gave us up until April 30th to actually fix the allocations we made, to actually meet the equity, meet the constitutional mandate. So that's something that we were battling on. Of course, there were disagreements on both sides of the aisle as to how we were going to get there. But fortunately, the Senate came up with a bill that we believed that would actually be constitutional. But of course, there are some disagreements, and right now, I think 2 weeks ago, it was argued at the Supreme Court whether or not it would go through or not. So we are still kind of waiting to see if we might go back to special session, because it is important that we actually do fully fund education here in our state. It is important not just for USC 259, but there was a study that was done. There was a consultant that was hired by the legislature to actually do a study as to where we're at, and the report came back that we would have been underfunding schools for about $2 billion. So what we actually passed, the legislature was funding for about $522 million. Actually came out from the Senate first. What came out from the House was about 235 or something like that. And we just thought it was, I voted against it because we know it was just woefully too small. So right now, the decision is actually in the Supreme Court. We're waiting to hear back from them. They did promise that we are going to get a ruling by the end of June 30th. So all eyes are on the Supreme Court right now, state Supreme Court. Bringing it home a little bit in terms of what we've done in terms of the benefit city of Wichita. You've heard Senator Fasquedo talk about transportation. We are very, very proud and honored that, with revenues that are coming into our state general funds, we actually, it happened last year, but we actually put up about $400 million in bonds for our roads, bridges, and highways. And we actually, if you've been following what's been going on, especially on the national level, President Trump did say that he wanted to focus on infrastructure this year, whether it's on highways, bridges, and roads. But that's actually a partnership. He did say it was a partnership between federal, state, and local. So we have actually, on our end, since we appropriated that, we have actually done our part. I know the city and also the county as well will have to get their share as well as to what they will do in terms of allocations, in terms of roads and bridges throughout in Cedric County and also in Wichita. So I don't know if there's actually been debated yet in the city council level, but it will come down in terms of what needs to be done. Okay. So we're happy about that. More importantly, you just heard Senator Fasquedo talk about health care. Last year, we did actually pass Medicaid expansion, and it passed both chambers. We were very happy about that, but then Governor Brownback actually vetoed it. Came back to the House, and we actually voted to override. Well, we didn't have the votes to override them, but we tried. We were short by 3 votes. It came up again this year. Matter of fact, the Senate Health Committee on February 14th actually had a hearing, and they passed it out of the committee, and the Senate Health Committee, Medicaid expansion. But due to politics, it never got a full vote. But when it came to the House, we tried to get it onto amendment to the budget, but it actually failed on an amendment. That doesn't mean that it's dead. That's something that we believe that is a right for everyone to have health care, and we're going to continue to fight for that.
That means we have to tell all of our friends who live in other districts
Yes.
Right.
to run or to vote for someone who is going to vote to expand Medicaid and get some of those people who will not do it out.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't.
So, one other thing that we actually did get out from the House, which we're very proud about, we actually did strengthen when it comes to civil rights. One law that we actually did pass in the House was the wrongful conviction compensation law, which has been, brought up several times. But we thought it was a good time for us, those who've been, wrongfully convicted in our justice systems, to be compensated. Yeah. It passed both houses, and we appreciate Governor Coyler. He actually did sign the bill into law. Those who have been wrongfully convicted will get compensation, not just monetarily, but also they will get free housing, free health care, And at the same time, they will get a certificate of a clean record so that they can actually get back into the workforce.
Yeah.
So that's something, that's one of the strongest laws, in the nation right now. Let's see. And one other thing that, in regards to that, one other thing that I do want to point out is in the budget this year, one thing that, City of Wichita did actually advocate, and I have to give credit to our Chief of Police, Chief Ramsey, and also Sheriff Easter, was they were advocating for more funding towards mental health. And that's something that is getting an increase this year. At the same time, increase in funding towards job training programs to help people find jobs. So I'm happy about that. I don't want to say everything. I don't want to take everything from Miguel. So, but yeah, it has been, it's been a great time. Of course, there have been disagreements. There have been some wins and some losses, but we're happy with what has transpired. So, again, I'll just sit down and just wait for any questions, and I'll turn it over to Gail. So, thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, I was just, I was like, check off. My name is Gail Finney, State Representative for the 84th District, and I'm in my 10th year, and I'm glad to be here today. And thank you, Councilman Brandon Johnson, for doing this, and I think it's a great idea, too, to shift to different areas. To be quite honest, I didn't know this place was here, but I made it on time. Several of the committees that I'm on financial institutions, which I'm the ranking member on that, local government, transportation and public safety, and juvenile justice oversight. But I wanted to back up a minute, something that he left out that I think is really important with that wrongful conviction bill. They were actually $65,000 per year for each year that they were incarcerated. I think that's fantastic, and they will get tuition assistance too. So that would help them get back on their feet. And for those that were, have to do probation or something like that afterwards, they're getting an additional $25,000. So I just want to add that in there because I think that's important too. I think that is something that Kansas should have done a long time ago, and I'm hoping that if that happened with someone else, that we're able to get that turned around and taken care of immediately. Can you imagine how that would affect someone's life? So everybody was supportive of that bill, and it just kind of flew through the House and the Senate. So just wanted to make sure everybody know that Kansas is on top of that, okay?
Yeah.
So we are on top of that. The 84th District, for those who aren't aware, the 84th District is from 21st Street North all the way down to Kellogg, roughly Oliver, over to Washington, and it carves out East High School and Wichita State University. We talked about schools. Well, mark that off. We talked about the budget, tax reform, mark that off. Did we even mention about the tax? We talked about that too when we did the veto, but we missed it for 3 years, so I'll mark that off. We haven't talked about sexual harassment and coercion, okay? We did get House Bill 2621, which makes it a law for crime, a law for law enforcement to engage in sexual relations with detainees. Can you imagine we even needed a law for that? Yeah. Yes. But that law, it goes into effect, the governor signed it, and basically it makes it illegal for when a law enforcement officer detains someone 16 years and older, they cannot have even consensual sex. So that is a crime. Everybody was surprised that wasn't already in the statutes. So that did go into law. And it's also, House Bill 2695 went into law where that states that the taxpayer would no longer have to pay in case a state official has done sexual harassment, or they get accused of something, and we will not use state funds to be able to pay for someone else's indiscretions. So you would think that would have been in law too, right? So we got a few things going on here, okay? Let me see, Medicaid expansion. I know we briefly talked about Medicaid expansion, but for those who don't know, this has been an ongoing battle. And all three of us, in case you didn't know, we support expanding Medicaid expansion. And with Ms. Lori Lawrence, she's up there. She is a fighter. Thank you. it's advocates like you that make these things happen and make some of us get off our butts and start fighting like crazy to get those things done. But we have tried this session. There was actually 2 attempts on the House side. I'm not sure on the Senate. Were there any attempts on the Senate to get Medicaid expansion on the Senate side? Do you recall?
One,
Okay.
and it went
Once on the
down.
Senate and twice on the House, so we keep trying. We have to do it on the floor since we can't get a correct hearing, but we are working on it. And you're right, we have to get people in those positions that support that. And since this is election season, this is the time to ask those questions and to get out the word about it. Let me see. Talk about the compensation for those wrongly convicted in prison. And on another important bill, House Bill 2145, that bill keeps the hands out of domestic abusers. That is so important from all the violence that we've had and the deaths that we've had with people that have been in domestic violence situations. And I'm sure you probably could think of several examples, but someone that's been convicted of a misdemeanor or someone that has a restraining order against them, you would think this would already been into law, but it wasn't into law. So we do have that into law now also. And there were several attempts trying to get more transparency. In case you don't know, we have a little transparency issue up there in the state capitol, okay? But there were bills introduced trying to get rid of our gut and go. Gut and go, for those who don't know, to me, is just ridiculous. Not only would they'll take a bill, I always use this example because it still ticks me off every time I think about it. A few years ago, I introduced a body camera bill that would require law enforcement officers to wear body cameras. It's a few years back. I guess they figured we're going to show Representative Finney. They took that bill and made it the Kansas Open Records Act. They gut the whole bill and they passed out Kansas Open Records Act, where it required that they didn't have to show the videos of when there was an incident with law enforcement officers. But we've actually went back and tried to repair that some. But gut and go, what it do, they can just take whatever they don't like in the bill, take it completely out, and put whatever they want in the bill.
But your name's still attached.
Yeah, but my name is still attached. Representative Finney. But we do have one bill that did get passed, I think it was either this session or last session, is that I can request that my name now be removed from that bill.
What about the bills that show up with nobody's name on them? What did they do about those? You know, the ones that they were asking that.
We were talking about, that did not go into law. But let me tell you how that happens sometimes. And I actually done this myself. Like when you go to a committee, say for instance, of corrections, I served on corrections and juvenile corrections for like 5-6 years, a long time. And so what, I can go there and say, even a lot of people don't know that you all can go introduce a bill too. You can go to the committee and say, I have a bill suggestion that I like, or a bill opportunity I want to introduce. And you can have it come out to be a committee bill. Corrections and juvenile justice. And some of the bills I have introduced, I've done that because sometimes you get more support from the committees if it's a committee bill. But I think it's also good to be able to have, even though it's a committee bill, Representative Finney sponsored it or suggested or introduced it or something like that. So that's part of the transparency things that we were introducing, that wouldn't go into law.
And Representative Finney,
Yes.
sometimes you can have a good bill, but if your other colleagues don't like you, so your name is on that bill showing transparency for you guys, the other members just won't even deal with it. And so that's one of the benefits of offering it as a committee bill.
So there's pros and cons to that.
Do those get to on the committee floor, even if the chair doesn't like it?
If the chair doesn't like it,
Forget it.
it can still be difficult. However, that's why I like with Medicaid expansion, we have to wait till we get to the floor and try to do amendments on the floor. So,
Someone's running against Dan Hawkins. by the way.
you're kidding. No, I know. Actually, Jennifer Wynn is running against Daniel Hawkins. She supports Medicaid expansion. One of the things that happened this session too, which we're all very proud of, is the Brown versus Board mural. Did everybody hear about that? I mean, that thing is beautiful. It is fantastic. I mean, you've probably seen the postcard, but you have to get up there and see. You can see that mural from across the entry. It is so beautiful. And it took years to get there. And Senator Faust-Godot, Senator Haley, and Senator Hensley, they were co-sponsors of that bill. It took years ago, and we finally got the funding to get it up. It was like $125,000, and they had the unveiling within the last couple of weeks. And I'm telling you, you have got to get there and see it. It is just absolutely fantastic. Have you seen it, Brandon?
I have not. I need to go see
You got
it.
to see it. It is beautiful. So, but you get carried away. Got to get your action back. But I can't leave here today until I talk about House Bill 2459. For those who know Gail Finney, I got to talk about forfeitures, okay? To me, I just think that is just so unjust that in the state of Kansas, or even in the United States, that law enforcement can take someone's property without even arresting them, charging them, or convicting them of a crime. And so what happens is you have innocent people that get caught up in that. It's not illegal to carry cash on you, but it's always suspected when you have more than $100 or $1,000 that it's got to be from some illegal gains. And that's not always the case. I had a constituent back in 2014 that approached me about being pulled over, and they had cash on them where they were going to buy a vehicle. And long story short, they were pulled over. I think they didn't give a signal within a few feet or something like that. They were pulled over, their car was searched, took their money, over, it wasn't quite $5,000, but took their money they were going to use to buy a car, seized it. When they went back to try to get it, they said they only had $800. When, to be quite honest, I didn't believe it at first, because I'm like, this is the United States. This can't be happening. How can that, without due process? What about people's property rights? I just think that is just a travesty that needs to be worked on. So for 4 years, I've been working on trying to get the Civil Asset Forfeiture Act revised in Kansas. So it's been 24 years, so we finally got some movement on it. I've introduced different bills saying that you need to be convicted of a crime. We need to be able to lower the burden from preponderance of evidence to clear and convincing. Because right now, if they pull you over, say for instance you got a joint in your pocket. I got to tell a story about that too. But say for instance they pull you over and you got a joint in your pocket, and you got $100. They can take your money, don't even ask any questions, don't even charge you. But what happens is, say for instance you have a house or a business or a car. They can take your house, your business, your car, your laptop, your cash, and it's up to you to prove that you got it legally. But what if you can't document for whatever reason? So the way the burden is now, preponderance, it's up to the person to be able to convince law enforcement. And chances are, if you're not really adept on statutes or law, or not in a position to hire a lawyer, what happens is, a lot of times people, they just don't even fight it. Because it's going to cost you more than $5,000 to hire an attorney. And a lot of times the average is $7,500 and below. So what happens is people, they just give up on it. And I don't think that should be that way. So with House Bill 2459, to give you a little background on it, in 2015 and 16, myself and ACLU, we introduced bills trying to get this reformed. It didn't go anywhere because it was so controversial. In case you didn't know, law enforcement, they support this. They want to keep it the way it is. The city of Wichita supported it. They wanted to keep it the way it is. It was on their platform. Do not change that. In several major cities, they don't want to change that because the revenue that comes in for civil asset forfeitures is unchallenged. They can do what they want with it, and it helps cover the city budgets, law enforcement budgets. And so what it does, it incentivizes law enforcement to be able to go out and seize more people's properties, because the chances are you don't have the money or the resources, maybe not even the time, to fight back. So to me, that's a travesty in Kansas.
Yeah.
So what happened is in February, actually had a hearing, well, in 2016 when the bills were introduced, it was such a hot firecracker. I wish everyone could have been there just to see the Capitol, how full the Capitol was of law enforcement in their uniforms, high-ranking, low-ranking. They came there to protest civil asset forfeitures. It makes you wonder, we're paying people to come to fight the citizens of Kansas. That is wrong, completely wrong. It needs to be changed.
Yeah.
So what happened was, with that bill, law enforcement, they came up in groves to fight that. So with the Judiciary Chairman Wilburn on the Senate and Chairman Finch on the House side, what they decided to do is to send that bill to the Kansas Judicial Council. The Kansas Judicial Council is a subsidiary of the Kansas Supreme Court. And so what they did, they had a committee, and they did invite Gail Finney, even though I didn't have a law degree, but I had a vested interest in that. So I was one of the 20 members that were on there, but they had the Highway Patrol, they had the KBI, they had Mark Bennett, they had all the top dogs in Kansas on that committee deciding this bill. But I had to be quite honest with you. The very first meeting when I went to, I figured this is not going to go the way I had hoped, because the deal breaker was law enforcement said up front, we are not even going to consider a conviction. That's not even on the table. We're not even going to consider clear and convincing. That's not on the table. So what do you have left? Those are the two main things that needs to be changed in Kansas. If you can't even discuss it, to me it's for the limit. But what we did come up with was the idea, was actually into law now, to be able to, back up again. I left something that was important out. In 2016, I went to the Legislative Post-Audit Group in Kansas and asked them to do an audit of law enforcement to see what is actually happening out there with our law enforcement and forfeitures. And it came back that law enforcement they weren't even keeping records of their forfeitures from the citizens of Kansas. Even Sedgwick County weren't keeping records. We even had in Montgomery County, there was a district attorney there that was taking money from forfeitures. He was district attorney in the day and he had a business at night. He was subcontracting his forfeiture business to his own business and getting a percentage of that. One of the things also I learned too is that prosecutors, they're getting 20% of the forfeitures.
And can I say this? So
Yes.
on that part, so Representative Gail Finney's bill, so, and I knew how passionate she was about this, and so over on the Senate side, when the bill came to the floor of the Senate, I offered an amendment to ask only for 5% of that money that's seized. Let's say if the police bust into a home and there are small children who are traumatized by the police all in their house, I just asked for 5% of that money to go to a victims fund, which would be housed in the Attorney General's office, to be put aside to help those kids through their mental issues or whatever, assistance they might need. And your elected officials who you voted for and we need to get out, they voted against that amendment. Why can't we? So anyway, they get that money to buy new bulletproof vests and all of their things. Why couldn't some of it go towards those kids? Man, I just want to say thank you, Representative Finney, for introducing that bill and sticking with it, because it's been 5 years?
4.5.
Okay.
Seems like it's been a long time. But one of the things that committee that I was telling you about, the Kansas Judicial Council, what they did decide that we did vote on as a group, something that we could all agree on, is that law enforcement needs to be more accountable. They need to start tracking where the money was coming from, who they took it from, where it was happening, the race, all of that. So the KBI is going to be responsible, the Kansas Bureau of Investigations. They will be, they have been tasked with designing a website that the public should be able to see, and it should go online at the end of 2019 and be ready by February 2020, where each law enforcement agency, city, local, county, state, they are required now to post and to keep track of who they're taking money from or who they're seizing their products. Make it sound like a business, which it is.
It is.
But they are required now to document actually who they took it from, what they do it, and how they spend the money. Because one of the things that we found is there were some people that weren't spending the money, what you would call, buying desks, having pizza parties, doing different things with that money, and there's no accountability. Mm-hmm. So at least now we'll know where they're getting it from, and they have to document what they did with the money, and there's going to be a beginning balance and an ending balance. So every year they have to at least start reporting that. So the good thing about this is I think it's going to make a difference, because now that you know that you are being watched, I think it's going to decrease a little bit. I think it's going to decrease tremendously. As a matter of fact, I have been the ranking on transportation and public safety, where the Kansas Bureau of Investigation and the Highway Patrol have to come there and we do their budget for them. And one of the things that the Highway Patrol colonel had mentioned to us is that they thought they were going to need additional $300,000 in their budget because they anticipate forfeitures to be decreasing now. But you know what? That's a good thing. I'd rather pay them the $300,000 instead of taking it from the citizens of Kansas.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good thing. It's a good thing. But we have to stay vigilant on that. We have to keep watching it. And when 2020 comes up in February, they do their first report, we still need to come back, and Kansas still needs to require conviction before they can seize someone's property. Because you just can't assume everyone is a criminal.
And Gail,
So-
you have a
Yeah, I have a
question?
question. too.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, ma'am.
Well, I just wondered, because the thing you're talking about with the $5,000, $800 was reported, is there a way to work into the legislature, or is it a local community kind of thing where people have to sign their property, you know?
Well, I tried to get them to do a
5,000.
receipt. That wasn't even a consideration for a receipt. Because what you have is your word against someone else's word.
But can't they, I mean, we have cell phones, right? Every single person has a cell phone. Can't they say,
You won't have your cell phone, they'll have it.
that's what I'm trying to get to, is, you know, the other thing I was thinking is watching videos say, don't consent to search, you know?
Yes.
But I wonder, in the heat of the moment, is that a wise thing in Kansas for people to do? You know, do people feel comfortable saying no? You
Well, I
may
would
not
imagine
search
the African American, particularly myself and my black sons, it would be very fearful for them. I would be afraid for them, for their lives, to be quite honest, because, I mean, sometimes people feel intimidated and they let them search.
Right.
In those two particular cases I mentioned to you, they feel like they didn't have anything to hide, they weren't doing anything illegal. So, but who thinks that your cash, just because you have cash, is illegal, you know? So it's, I guess it's a judgment call on each person.
Facebook Live.
And I
Facebook
want to,
Live, yeah, that's true, yes.
I want to say something. I think Mr. McAfee has his question, though.
Did you have a question?
I don't
Mr.
have a
Mack?
question. I'm so proud of the three of you. The city is brilliant, intelligent, informed people.
Oh, thank you.
What I'd like to suggest, and I would hope this group could agree with that, I'd like for the three of you to have a meeting and decide which one of you is going to go run for the county commission seat, represents this district. It is so important that we begin to have representation at the county, representation at the city, that then helps push this community's agenda on the state legislature. And it's very obvious to me, it's gotta be one of the three of you that really makes the push.
Well, you know, the deadline passed on June
Deadline's passed.
1st. And it's gonna be Lacey Cruz and Ranzol running for the district.
And Mike Kennard.
Oh, did he get,
Mike
did he get on the
Kennard.
ballot? Did he get on the
He
ballot?
filed by petition.
By petition.
Mike Kennard.
Two primaries.
So you've got district, so this is District 1 City Council.
Understand what I said?
Oh.
The three of you. I'm talking about somebody with some serious legislative experience that can talk to issues like the three of you do. That's what I'm talking about.
I just want to add, you said three of us. It's actually four of us, you know?
Yeah, I'm busy with the city stuff.
Okay.
But I mean, this is so serious. This is so serious. You know, it's almost like I've been around so long. I remember when Governor Docking and I were happy because by the time the vote got past Wichita, we had liquor by the drink. By the time we got to the Colorado border, we had nothing. Okay? It's still operating that same way.
It,
We
it,
need to have this community with its best people into Pekin, talking about the whole legislative issues that we're suffering from.
well, and if I could say, Mr. McAfee, and I'm going to just comment on what Representative Finney was saying. Here's a good example of why her good bill didn't pass into law the way that she just described. So you have to vote for other people. People will come and say one thing, and you have to get the background on them of how they're voting regarding the issues that are important to you. So here's an example. So our legislature will vote for things. Now this is kind of depending on how you look at it. So if you look on my page 2 of my newsletter, so I actually introduced the bill that allows the Wichita flag to be on your license. To be on your license plate. However, so that bill flew through the legislature very well. Okay, so to Representative Finney's point, so Mrs. Maxine Bostic, Fran Jackson, and others in here who are educators. So when we talk about the kids that are in foster care, and we talk about the kids that are sleeping in the offices, well, here's an example of why, they'll tell you a lot of things, but here's one factual piece of why kids are sleeping in offices. So kids are removed from the homes, which I think for silly reasons, when DCF and everybody should help that family as a whole. Some of them are just poor, and they're taking babies from mothers right in the hospital just because they test positive for marijuana. They need to give them a 6 months treatment and keep those kids together. Well, so a teacher or educator named Catherine Love, she called me and she said, Olitha, I am a teacher and I am a foster parent. She said she receives phone calls from St. Francis Community Center, where kids are placed by DCF. She said they will call her and say, do you have a bed for the kid to sleep in tonight? She'll say yes. So the social worker brings the kid to her house, the kid sleeps. In the morning, she's a school teacher, so she says, can I just take the kid to school with me? But she can't. So then the social worker comes back and picks up the kid and takes the kid back to the office to sit in there all day. And we know that if kids are missing 3 days of school, they're behind. Statistics are showing, the data shows that kids are at least missing 8 days of school, because what we do, DCF, we'll take the kids and then we'll ship them from Sedgwick County to Shawnee County in Topeka or Overland Park or just wherever. So now, Mrs. Maxine Bostic, they're out of their school district. So the foster parent cannot enroll them in school. They can't go to school, okay? So if you still look on page 2, so we passed the flag bill. That's, that's cool, whoever said yay over there, but it's not really, it'll make some money for some parks, but it's not really affecting anybody's lives directly. So go on down from the Wichita license plate bill and look at residency for school attendance, Senate Bill 319. And our big fight of education, like Representative Hopperson said, is that it's really not even what you guys think. What it is a battle between rich areas in the state of Kansas and your poor areas. So USD 259, the largest school district, we got a lot of low-income kids who get free and reduced lunch, but in Overland Park, it's a little different. So we had the hearing going on, Mrs. Bostic. Even our new DCF director came in and testified in favor of it. And what the bill would have simply done was allow that foster parent to use the address of DCF. Whatever county you're in, you could use that DCF address and enroll that kid in school for whatever time until they got permanent placement or reunited back with their family. However, the bill is going along really good. The 9 senators on the committee, well, the 8 senators were in favor. One senator, Barbara Boyer, from Overland Park, she said, well, and she's talking to me because I'm standing at the podium, and her question and comment to me, she said, well, Senator, do you really think that the kids from inner city Wichita want to come over to Overland Park with other kids they don't know? And but then we're always talking to Phineas
Things
this
that are really
Friday.
important to your lives. It's easy to get something, like she said, the flag passed through. Hey, no controversy. But anything that's going to directly affect someone and make a difference in their lives, those bills are very difficult.
And so it depends on what you do on August 7th. You got to vote for different people. You do.
Understand why I'm begging the three of you. I'm flat out begging the three of you to go after the county seat. I mean, it is insane that we're represented by somebody like that. It is absolutely insane.
From Valley Center, he's not even from here.
So we've got 10 more minutes with this panel, so.
I just want to, when I was talking about civil asset forfeiture, it's like the cover story of the community voices.
I just want to cover one other point.
And I'm done.
Well, thank you for letting me speak today.
I just want to cover one other point. I know we've talked about a lot on the DCF. At the same time, I wanted to go back a little bit. I forgot to mention something. I do serve on the taxation committee. And last year, we actually reversed the 2012 tax cuts that actually crippled the state. Now, if you remember, back in 2016, what the forecast of the state was that we were going to be in a $1.3 billion shortfall. And it already took toll as to across the state, whereby schools, US 259, where we had to cut some services, cuts to Medicaid, cuts to DCF. But when we reversed the tax cuts, we are now at about a $300 million surplus. We have, from that money coming in, we've done a lot of things. We've actually added more money to senior citizen programs like Meals on Wheels throughout the state. Our bond ratings have gone up in the state, which actually helps local level in terms of offering incentives to businesses to come in. So we're actually moving in the right direction. And I'm happy about that. I know we took a lot of heat for raising taxes. But I will say this, and I want to be very upfront, that we are going to pass Medicaid expansion. It will happen. But the state has to put in its own fair share in terms of implementation of the program. So therefore, there's a likelihood that taxes could go up. I stand here today to tell you that if it does, I will vote for it because there are a lot of people in my district, in the city of Wichita, in Cedric County, that need health care. And one way to actually provide that is through Medicaid expansion. So if you get a card from America for Prosperity or tax policy that people voted to increase their taxes, it is for a good, actually for a human good, for us to provide health care for all. So
Yeah.
that is what I wanted to tell you. I don't want no surprises as to if I vote to increase taxes again. That's my
There's
my
your
position.
question right there on Officer. Yeah, you can look on the newsletter that I just gave you, and it directs you, let's see here, to the website, but you can just Google just type in Kansas Legislature, and it will pop up everything, and you can click on whatever you're looking for.
It's under kslegislature.org. If you go to the research department, probably in the middle of June, they do a
This
summary
first time I don't have it on
of
here.
all the legislation that has passed. Normally, I have them with me, but because we ended our session so early this time, I ordered them, and I normally hand them out to events like this. But they haven't come yet, so it may not be online yet. But it gives you a complete summary. There's about 20, 30 pages of everything that we passed in this legislative session.
And it's under.
And Ms. Fran,
Is there a way to recapture the triple $5 million because we weren't smart enough to go for it?
No.
so every
You have to
year,
go to other states. You're talking about on Medicaid?
every year that money is dwindling down, and our money for the state of Kansas is going to other states. And then since I have the floor real quick, I gotta say thank you to Juan Wash. He came up to Topeka, he advocated for the body cam bill and the racial profiling bill. I also want to say For an example, so before your wonderful Brandon Johnson became your city councilman, he and Lamont Anderson, along with myself, worked on the Kansas Reinvestment Act. Brandon Johnson came up to Topeka and testified in the Commerce Committee that I serve on. And here's how it just works. So the Kansas Reinvestment Act would have put money back into small businesses here in District 1, okay? And other areas across the state of Kansas. But here was the deal. My colleagues on the committee, they didn't feel that was important. So they suggested to Councilman Johnson, we'll go and tweak the bill, tweak it a little more, do this, do that. I think we introduced that. I introduced it a couple of times, and it still didn't move forward. But here's the point I'm making, Representative Finney, is that on her point of her good bill not passing because the other lawmakers, even though they talk nice to you in person, they go there and vote against your interests. So, but guess what? Investment Act. You know, and it was a difference. I'm like, I had to stand up and say, well, why don't you want to invest in my inner city like you do in the rural areas? And it's just depends. So the majority of our legislators are farmers. They're in that area, and they don't even get what we're dealing with. That's why we need your help to come up to Topeka sometimes. And so the same way that Brandon, the Kansas Reinvestment Act, you guys here are the people we work for. Come up with something. All we need is a paragraph, and we'll send it to a reviser, an attorney who specializes in whatever you want. And then we introduce the bill, because since Representative Finney doesn't have an opponent, we'll both be there. We'll both be there next year, and then you come up.
For years, I have been designing rail projects in Boston, Washington, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Miami, LA. The money from Kansas gets turned back, and it's building all these other rail systems.
Yep.
Yep.
Around every place, because the state of Kansas won't take their own damn money. This is insane.
It's just the governors, our governors. Because you see, you heard from Representative Finney and O'Hoppison and myself that all of us legislators, we're voting for it. But when it gets to the governor's desk,
Different story.
and he vetoes it, that's the problem. So make sure you elect the best governor for us. Wilson? Oh, I'm sorry.
What are you gonna do in the next session, since y'all unopposed, 2 or 3, about educating our people in the prison system to reduce recidivism? We know, used to be before, Governor Finney was in office, that they did train and educate and give them some kind of skills coming in out of the penitentiary, where they could then go and get jobs once they return back to society, and then they took the funding for that, which now we have more of an increased recidivism rate because they're expected within 30 days to get a job, but they have no training. And so what are we doing to look at that going forward as we move forward about getting some kind of training and education, because we know we're the ones that are greatly impacted, our people of color, as we move forward.
Finney?
Secondly, y'all done an excellent job, but why can't we tackle those federal funds that are mandated to banks to reinvest in the community? That, is kind of like your economic development. The banks are already required by law federally to reinvest in those depressed communities, and they're not doing it. And so maybe we need to look at that legislation to force them to set aside a certain amount and let the people in communities know that that money is there and that they should be able to tap into it. Also, I have one more, but I'm one like that.
mentioned before that I serve on the Transportation and Public Safety Committee, which is all the prisons come through that budget. And long story short, we've been underfunding them. The money, particularly when we had that big tax cut, there hasn't been enough funds and revenue for that. One of the things too that happened, we've had correction officers that we haven't been able to keep also because we haven't been able to afford to pay them correctly. We did recently give them like a 5% raise just to get them to like $14 an hour, trying to sustain and keep people there. So it's all boiled down to dollars. But one of the things that we said also that we had the cuts, and I forgot to mention it, I had it on my note, but I kind of got sidetracked. I serve on the Kansas Juvenile Justice Oversight Committee. And Senator Fausto, all of us will remember Senate Bill 367, which it was designed to reduce recidivism for our youth, to get them out of jail, and to put them more into foster homes and keep them in homes, provide resources. The very first year, we were supposed to have a major savings of $12 million. We just discovered since the governor since we just got the bill back, out of the $12 million that we had saved by doing this over the last year, they swiped $6 million of it. Half of the money that was supposed to be able to provide resources for our youth.
The majority of our colleagues, leadership.
They put it in the Kansas Department of Health
They took
and Human
it.
Services, and they didn't even ask for the money. So we had a meeting in Topeka this week trying to figure out how we're going to get the money back. So we're in the process now of writing all the big wigs in the legislature like, hey, how can you guys do this after we've been working years to get this done, trying to get that reversed, because that's going to put a big detrimental effect.
So you have to
trying
elect-
get those kids not to recidivize. So
Elect different people. That's all.
All right, so we have time for one more question if we have one.
He looks at me sideways because he knows I'll take more than one question. Okay, what I'm thinking about is that if we're going to give all this money to some commercial unit to build a jail, and they think they can build it and treat it like a business, how is it that we will allow that to happen, knowing that it's very difficult when you're nonprofit to even make it work? So why would we build a jail and give it to a for-profit?
I want to tell you there was some hanky-panky there, in my opinion. The reason I say that, okay. At first, it was going through the legislature, like that committee I was on, we were discussing it, and it would have been able to have a bill go to the floor, we can debate it on the floor. However, the Governor Brownback, under his leadership, they decided to do it closed doors, and he made the decision to go privately without the votes of the legislature.
Is there a way
So
to
that's what
rescind
happened with that. Huh?
Is there a way to rescind that and redo it?
I don't know at this point.
All they have to do is look at private prisons all over the country.
They don't make
And
money.
this whole business of transparency, you don't know whether the judges are on the tape, whether the lawyers are on the tape. You don't know who is being sentenced to these private prisons to keep them in business.
Well, Mr. McAfee, if you look on page 3 of my handout, you'll see where it says no private prisons and kind of, so that bill will go in effect July 1st for here in the state of Kansas. But I'm just going to end again by saying, and my voice really can be louder than this. My daughters are so embarrassed of me talking loud. But it really matters of who you vote for. I don't care. I mean, in the general years, it's going to depend on who you elect for governor, because, Mr. McAfee, even if we're there, we only got one vote.
That's why I need you in these other places.
So we need more people there like us to vote with us for the betterment of your lives and your family lives. Thank you for having us.
Thank you to our panel. A lot of great information. I want to make sure we keep doing this and always providing that platform to connect to our local community as well. So before we close, I have a few updates. So our neighborhood, again, want to make sure you all know about that and apply for that. I will take questions after all of these because I have a lot from Ms. Camila. Also today, two things. Tonight is the first late night rec at the North Y. They're doing that 3 times this summer. So if you have young people, let them know that they can go to the North Y tonight. They'll be open, I think, almost until midnight, from 8 to midnight. They can go there, it'll be food, fun, and it'll be open for them. So they're doing that this Saturday night tonight, once next month, and then once in August. We are also working on some opportunities for late night at McAdams that we'll have an announcement next week. So we'll keep McAdams. Get to let your young people know about the Say Yes program. So with that, you get a free summer pass, Wichita Transit, free entry to any public swimming pool, free golf and foot golf. I don't know what that is, but it's out there. At the Clap Golf Course, and free summer meals at different locations. So remember that Say Yes, you can go to wichita.gov/sayyes. We also share that on our social media, and we have flyers at our rec centers as well. And then this coming Friday is the Young Adult Job Fair from 9 a.m. to 12 over at the Wichita Workforce Center on 21st and Amadon. So make sure we get our young people there. We know, as David Gilkey says, nothing stops a bullet like a job, so we want to make sure we get our young people there, get them employed and trained, and that's a great way to do so.
What is the date?
It is Friday, June 8th from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. And we've been sharing that as well. It's in the newsletter. We'll keep getting that out this week to make sure we get folks there. And then make sure you look at your yellow sheet, all of the great things that we're doing over at Lynette Woodard Center. All of these different classes that are available, most of these or all of these are affordable. So we do a lot in our park and rec centers, and a lot of folks don't know all of what we do, but we do a whole lot there. And this is just a little bit of what we do at one center. So McAdams also has its own list. And don't forget that Atwater has a boxing ring in it. Some folks don't know that, so if you want to take boxing, it's, I think, $30 for 5 weeks, so you can go in there and learn how to box, get some good cardio going. So I wanted to throw all of that out there. And then, Mr. McAfee, you had a...
The baseball diamond